just in case you need to pull it up, just in case.
The CAC?
No, a management plan. I know that everybody else got it, but Dr. Lopez's email rejected it. So I don't know why.
Got it.
You got it. Yeah.
Wow.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi,
McCarthy.
Jackie.
Hello, thank you. I'm mobile tonight, so I'm just going to be listening in. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Here comes Carrie.
Here I am. Hi, all.
Hello,
Sorry,
Miss Carrie.
Zoom decided it needed to update before I could join you all. So
Hey, Carrie.
sorry.
Okay, well, let's get started. Call the meeting to order. So we have a few things tonight. Usual review the minutes from the last meeting. We have two variances that Ade is going to walk us through and we're going to discuss and vote on. Coalition update, if there is one. And then we're going to have a discussion about the Climate Advisory Committee proposal on bylaw change relating to food establishments that will impact the health department. And we do our usual monthly report, public comment, and adjourn and kind of go from there. Any other pressing agenda items at all?
I just have one question. Do we
Sure.
need to be, do we need to start talking about monkeypox?
Well, I was thinking when Christine does her epidemiology report, we should ask about that.
Okay,
I haven't heard of any cases, but we should
not
talk a
here.
little bit about it.
No, there was 2 in Worcester reported.
Really?
Yep, 6,000 nationwide.
Hmm.
It is definitely becoming more of a topic among my colleagues.
Mm,
Hmm.
We also have information on the health department website regarding monkeypox.
Thank you. Good.
It's updated on a
Hmm.
regular basis. So
I think in Massachusetts, the cases are in double digits, aren't they?
I can't answer.
That's my understanding.
Yes. All right. In terms of the minutes from July 7th, any edits, changes? Look
I didn't
good
see
to me.
anything.
I
Look
didn't
good
see-
to me.
Yeah. Make a motion to approve the minutes from July 7th. Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second,
Okay, roll call. Carrie,
Yes.
Paula,
yes.
and Rick, yes. So the minutes are approved. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, so Ade, why don't we kind of move right on to 34 Hartshorn, the request for a variance. You want to present that?
yes, thank you very much. So as you all know, the owners of 34 Action complied with the initial order and corrected the violations listed on the initial order letter. However, when we returned for subsequent re-inspections, we noticed additional violations. The backyard was unrecognizable. It was forest-like conditions observed, overgrown vegetation, weeds, tall grass, unkept shrubs, unwanted plants, all over the entire backyard due to warm weather. So pretty much what we did was we issued a subsequent order letter on the 21st of June to have those violations corrected. The owners were ordered within 14 days to do the following: to cut down the vegetation, overgrown vegetation, remove the tall grass, weeds, and unkept shrubs, remove unwanted plants, eliminate all nuisance conditions on the property, and maintain the property free from overgrowth, unwanted plants in a manner that would prevent possible rodent, insect, or pest harborage. We also ordered them to submit a management plan that addresses the upkeep of the lawn, shrubbery, and other landscape features. The management plan must ensure that the property will be maintained in a clean and sanitary manner, devoid of overgrown vegetation and attractive nuisances. The plan must include the removal of trash and debris and landscape features that may result in injuries or accidents. So we were back at the property yesterday to do a reinspection, and we observed significant improvement. A lot of the overgrowth has been removed, and you can now access the backyard. It doesn't feel like you're in a forest anymore. So the issue now is how the owners intend to maintain the backyard. You know, as you all know, an inspection is just an observatory snapshot at a particular moment. You know, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 days, 7 days. Will the backyard become a forest again in a couple of weeks? We don't have the answer to that. And that is exactly the reason why we asked for a backyard management and maintenance plan. So now, before the meeting around 3 o'clock, we received the management plan. And basically, what the management plan is saying is that the owners intend to maintain their backyards themselves and seek help if needed. So that was exactly how we got to this point. The management plan does not seem adequate. The plan is not proposing anything different from what was done in the past that resulted in the current situation. And I have little to no confidence that their proposed management plan will prevent this from happening in the future. I'm not convinced that they won't end up in the same situation again. The owners have requested additional time to comply with this order. The owner stated that they ordered some rocks to create a pathway on the right side of the property, and will move some rocks and concrete materials on the left side of the property to make it more accessible and prevent landscape features from causing injuries. As you all know, this has been going on for a while. You know, the letter was issued on June 21st. This is August 4th. Based on yesterday's inspection, you know, we saw significant improvement, and my recommendation will be for the Board of Health to grant them a conditional 30-day extension, which will be conditional upon the owners providing a comprehensive management and maintenance plan by a licensed professional landscaping company that is not owned by the occupants of 34 Hatchon. This comprehensive management and maintenance plan should be submitted within 7 days. And I think the owners are here.
Yes.
If they have anything.
We're not gonna hire a landscape company to do that maintenance. I've gone through the list of things. You know, I have a disability. I've been sick. I can still do some work. This all started in the winter. So for a lot of that period, I couldn't do any work. And it started with a faulty assessment by the previous health inspector. So yeah, you know, in the past, I've maintained the property for the most part. The last year has been a little difficult, but I've done a ton of work. All the improvements that you saw when you were here yesterday, I did myself. Most of the heavy stuff is done. We got rid of the shed that you wanted us to get rid of. We got rid of all the materials, lumber, all that stuff for the most part. And, you know, from here on in, the maintenance is easier than it had been previously over the last year. You know, we've been dealing with the rat situation, which I know you don't want to talk about, but that's what instigated all of this. And I'd like to remind everyone that I'm not the one who had the large rodent nest. My neighbor has had 2 large rodent nests in their yard in the last 6 months, And the health inspector has never been over there into their yard just to see the conditions over there. I've written this all in a very long report explaining why they had rodents over there. I have had no sign of rodents, and I'm still under a professional pest control company. They just came yesterday. They have not seen any sign of rodents. So I know there's this perception that, you know, I have shrubs and somehow that is attracted to rodents, but it just isn't so. The rodents were attracted to my neighbor's yard because the soil over there is perfect for burrowing animals. I've told that to Jennifer. I said, you need to take it seriously and do something about it because they are at high risk for more rodent activity. And, you know, 2 large rodent nests in a 6-month period, to me, says at least that the health inspector should be over there talking to the people. I said, you need a mitigation plan. But because I have a messy yard with shrubs, and there's a perception that that is what rodents like, well, the reality is that the rodents chose the perfect place for them to nest in my neighbor's yard, but the health inspection doesn't take it seriously. They have not even been over there. They get the progress reports, but they haven't even been over there to check the situation. I told them they now, another neighbor told me that they have a family of groundhogs over there, so, which implies a nest. I asked Jennifer if she could check that out. Nobody cares. She didn't even tell a day that fact. So, you know, I'm told I see words like filth and sickness in regards to my property, and yet the real danger, having a large rat's nest and a large, apparently, groundhog nest burrow in there, nothing is done. There's been no sign in my yard of rat activity at all since April 4th. And even then it was minimal, and it was all along the property lines, which is how rats like to travel. We had a large nest in my neighbor's yard. We had a neighbor on the other street who used to leave out garbage for the wildlife. And he was told several times not to do that. I think he's finally put it in a feeder, but it was obvious to me what was going on. The rats were traveling through here to get to the food source. And the neighbors used to leave out mounds of trash, overflowing trash without lids on it. So I'm just a little frustrated. We've always complied with the regulations. I don't have a problem. I realize the town has to take an interest in keeping standards and all of that. I don't have an issue with that. It's just that it seems a little bit of a, it's like nobody's paying attention. You know, I just asked Jennifer to go look into this, and just nobody's interested. I don't see how having rodents nests, the actual ones are there, everybody thinks that my yard should be full of rodents. We've checked. I had a couple of rodents come over from the overpopulated nest next door over the winter. My neighbor got hysterical. She was threatening me. She's telling everybody that I was responsible for her rats and that she was going to sue me. Then the town started and they demanded that I get a pest control person, which we did. I did it reluctantly because I myself had killed the few rats that had come over, which was proved when the pest control companies, Waltham Pest Services, they set up bait traps and snap traps in my basement where I had seen some rat droppings. No rat activity at all when they started because I had killed them beforehand. They caught 4 mice. So I'm just frustrated where all the attention seems to be on me, and I don't have a problem as far, I had a messy yard. I'm not going to argue that at all. But it just seems to be misplaced priorities in terms of actual sickness, actual filth, because when you have nesting, you have feces, and that's how they found out they had a rat's nest. Their dog got sick and almost died because there were so many feces they hadn't noticed. It was eating them. And to me, that's a far greater actual health risk, you know, and a groundhog nest also. So I'm frustrated that the health department is completely ignored, like doesn't matter, because if their yard is empty and has a lawn, so they think it's not a risk. This association between rats and this harborage term, it's a misconception in the sense that the rats don't care about the shrubs. If they cared about all my overgrowth, they would have nested over here. What they care about is the soil, the substrate, the composition. They need something that's good for tunneling and burrowing. I explained to everybody, I know the soil over there. It used to be part of our yard when we were growing up. And I know the soil over here. And there are all sorts of reasons why I don't get big nesting animals here. I've never had a problem with the groundhog. Next door, they have had tunneling problems with the groundhog. So yes, I'm just frustrated. I'm not, I'm happy to comply. You know, we're doing our best, but this is a situation that's gone on for a very long time. It seems a little bit arbitrary to me. And I just, you know, some of the language just seems hyperbolic, and I don't really understand when I see words like filth and sickness, where that is in my yard. So yeah, I'm very frustrated. Ade knows that. I would just like to know, what is the actual health concern that people have?
So Ade, do you want to comment?
So again, the owners, Michelle and Brian, they are requesting, you know, additional time to comply with the order. The owner has stated that, you know, they ordered some rocks to create a pathway on the right side of the property. They will be moving some rocks and concrete materials on the left side of the house to make it more accessible and to prevent landscape features from causing injuries. So the recommendation here regarding the backyard of 34 Hatchon is to grant them a 30-day extension, conditional upon providing a comprehensive management plan by a licensed professional landscaping company, you know, that is not owned.
We're not going to do that, Ade. No, I'm not going to do that. No.
So this is a recommendation to the board.
The health department already forced me to get a pest service that I didn't need.
Brian, this is a recommendation to the board.
I
Thank you.
realize.
Yes, please let the board speak. Thank you very much.
So let me ask Ade, in terms of these, what Mr. Stoll raised around rat nests in adjacent properties and so forth, has that been evaluated? Is this the first time you're hearing about it, or where is that?
So I try my best not to get into neighbor disputes, or, you know, if they're suing each other. I don't know about that, and I don't really want to get involved in that. But we have inspected the adjacent property, and we did not find any, you know, major issues regarding what Mr. Stowell mentioned. They also have an IPM, integrated pest management plan, and they submit their plan to the health department. Their reports, as soon as they get it, they submit it to us. And when we look at the reports, there are no significant issues on the adjacent property. So again, you know, the fact that I did not interrupt Mr. Stowell doesn't mean that I agree with everything he said. I was just giving him a chance to talk and express, well, you know, his feelings and everything. But we've been to the adjacent property. There was no evidence of mice or rats or anything significant on that property. So his claims that, you know, we've been ignoring that adjacent property and we've never been there, those are not accurate. So now the main focus right now is about his yard and the upkeep and maintenance of his yard. He has had the opportunity to do that. And we still got into this situation. So I'm not confident that if we let him continue what he has been doing, we won't fall back into the same situation. And that's why I'm asking the board to mandate him to get a pest management company to manage his yard for him temporarily till.
A landscaping company.
Landscape.
Correct.
So your concern and in the recommendation is really anticipatory that as of yesterday's inspection, the property is adequately cleared. And your concern is that in the absence of a professional landscaping company, that 30 days from now, 45 days from now, 60 days from now, we'll have the same situation recur.
So during yesterday's inspection, we saw significant improvements, significant. So we would like them to keep up with the improvements. And the latter part of what you said, I completely concur with, because they've been in charge of their backyard for a while, and we got into that situation. So if you're giving me the same plan that you had that got you into that situation, nothing has changed. You're not proposing anything different. And I have no confidence in you that, this time around, you're going to maintain your property. So all we're asking is to temporarily have a professional landscaping company manage their backyard for them until, they're able. And as he mentioned earlier, he said he had, some issues that might prevent him from doing the work. So I don't see how giving us a plan that involves him doing the work, will be adequate. I just don't see it.
Any comments from board members or thoughts or suggestions? Carrie?
I have one question, Adag, if you could comment for me. Mr. Stoll made reference to a faulty assessment under a previous a previous health agent. If we could just clarify that for me, that would be helpful.
Well, the previous health agent, Dennis, he was a contract inspector, observed evidence of mice on his property. And but for some reason, Mr. Stoll believes he has no rats on his property. And this variance request is not even about rats, it's about maintenance of his property. And we did an inspection yesterday. That was a snapshot. We don't know what's going to happen 5 days from now. We don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. And we don't want to keep going back to Mr. Stoll's property. We have other things to do as well. And we can't keep going back to Mr. Stoll's property. So if we know that a licensed professional landscaper has been contracted with to maintain their yard, that gives us some type of, understanding that we won't get into this situation again in the future. Now, it doesn't have to be permanent. It can be temporary till they can, be able to maintain their yards themselves. But I have no confidence that if we continue the same plan they had that got us into the problem, that all of a sudden we're going to see something, a different outcome. I'm not confident.
May I speak again?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So my response to that is I have proven over the last month that I am capable of taking care of that property, because everything that's been done in the last month has been done by myself alone, not even my sister. myself alone. In fact, I worked from 6:30 in the morning to 2:30, pretty much clear through with a couple breaks for drinks, and did all that extra work that Ade has seen that was a positive improvement since the last time he was there. You know, I was a landscaper by profession. I know how to take care of a property. There were all sorts of extenuating circumstances. And I know nobody wants to hear about the rats, but that's what started this. And it became this whole situation that's been going since February. I know how to take care of the property. It's a difficult property for most landscaping companies to deal with. It's not your typical, I don't have a lawn. I have a lawn in front. My neighbor mows that for me. So it's not your typical, you know, I have a rock garden. I have hydrangeas I trained into trees, which is what Ade means by forest back there. And I'm confident that I can do it. I know Ade isn't, but I have done the work for the last month, working every day. You know, 3 hours usually my limit, and we're in the middle of a heat wave. I mean, I'm trying to work. Mornings are not good for me. It takes my brain a long time to wake up, but I can at least, you know, get myself out as early as I can before the heat hits. You know, I think I've proven that I, in fact, can take care of that property just by my actions of the last month, even the last week.
Yes, Paula.
Okay, so you're making a recommendation to not allow the extension?
To grant them a 30-day extension
To grant them
conditional upon Mr. Stowell turning in a management and maintenance plan that would address the situation in his backyard. Because the plan he turned in basically was for him to do the job. And he has been in charge of doing the job. And that was what got us into the situation we're in right now. So I'm not confident to allow Mr. Stowell to continue doing what he did that got us into this situation and expect a different outcome. I'm just not confident that we're going to get a different outcome.
You've seen a different outcome in the trips you've made to the yard. I mean, you've seen the proof of that different outcome and the work that I've done. I mean, it's there. You noted it yourself, a big improvement. So if I couldn't take care of the property, I certainly wouldn't have been able to do all that I've done over these last few weeks that have changed things for the better and that I continue to do. I've always complied with what the Board of Health or the health department wants. You know, we're getting there. I'm sorry it's taken a long time and that you're not happy with it, but we have disagreements about some of that. And part of it is, you know, you're not a plant person and whatever, but yes, I can. I think I've shown that. And you've noted it yourself, just in what you said, a big improvement. That was me alone.
Carrie.
First, Mr. Stoll, I thank you for representing yourself, but I also thank you for perhaps, you know, considering your tone. I understand that this is a emotional issue, but I trust Ade and his professionalism, and I am certain that he is not making this recommendation capriciously. He's not making it out of any, you know, any negative feeling or anything. He's a very professional person. He's a very committed professional, and I respect his recommendations, and I want to make sure that that's known and that he, you know, is treated with respect as much as possible. Ade, when you say hiring a professional landscaping company, I mean, that can go that there's a wide range of that, right? I mean, that can be the nice guy that comes and does my spring cleanup, or that can be the people with the big trucks. And I'm sorry, I'm not a professional, so I don't know I'm not using the language right, but with all the machines and so forth, is there a standard of professional landscaping that you are expecting when you make this recommendation?
So pretty much we know that summer, we're looking at somewhere between May through September. So we're looking at 4 to 5 months out of the year.
Mhm.
So if they can have a professional landscaper come in, give them a plan, maybe every 2 weeks, they'll go in there and do the weeding, remove unwanted plants, something like that. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for something that's way too expensive or anything like that. That's basically what we're looking for. The type of backyard he wants to maintain is very, it requires constant attention. It's not like a regular lawn that you just go in there and mow it. It requires regular day-to-day attention. And if you leave it without attending to it, it's going to grow wild and become a forest within a snapshot. And that's the situation we're in. It's a nice backyard, if it's manicured, if it's cleaned up, things like that. But if you just leave it to grow wild, it becomes a forest. And that's the issue here.
May I speak again, or?
Sure, go ahead.
I think part of this is perception, which I tried to deal with in terms of, Ade sees a forest and, he said, it still looks like a forest. To me, that's not a bad thing. He sees a lot of overgrowth, but I have purposely pruned things to grow up as small trees. I will send pictures to the board, or you can see for yourselves. There's been a lot of bad pictures taken in my yard, and it has been a mess. But the trouble with getting it sounds great. Everybody thinks if you just hire a professional, that's a fix. Like my neighbor thought, she pressured us to get pest control along with the town because she thought that would fix everything. They wave a magic wand. It's the same thing with landscape. I'm not really sure what they do. Even professional landscapers, a lot of them are geared towards doing your lawn, raking your leaves. They're not like fine pruners, or they know every weed that needs to be pulled up. I've already experienced this. We had help from friends and everything, and I've had shrubs hacked to death. It's okay, they meant well, but you run up with that even with professional landscape person. So I'm not really sure. Ade is taking this moment in time of this winter and spring. That's just been one moment of the yard. Like he says, it's a snapshot. It's a whole process that never ends. Reading is a process that never ends. It ended up for me somewhat. I'm sorry to bring this up again, but it was the instigation because all the drama with this rodent thing. And I'm just having a hard time seeing, again, I see the mess. I don't dispute that at all. I'm just having a hard time seeing, this major health concern and these words, filth and sickness and stuff. So, as I said, we've been complying, we've been doing a lot of work. I've done a lot of work. We're going to continue doing that. And I would ask the board at least to give us a little more time to prove that, in fact, I can take care of it. And I'm fine with revisiting it in a couple months. If things have reverted as Ade thinks they will, then yes, okay. But I have been able to do a lot of work, and I will continue to do that. But it's been difficult with all the threats and the deadlines. I know that you have to motivate people to get things done. Go ahead.
Carrie.
So I think our our question is, how is it that we go about implementing this is an issue about, this is a public nuisance, right? I mean, this is where we are, and this is how this is being addressed. And so that's where your words, the words you reference to, that's the standard language in the bylaw. So our question, our agent has come to us and asked and given us a recommendation, because of his concerns about whether the property, about how to keep the property from becoming a public nuisance again. It sounds like it's not a public nuisance. It currently at this moment is not a public nuisance. Is that correct? Ade?
Currently, at this moment, based on the inspection conducted yesterday, we saw significant improvement.
Okay, okay. But not,
So
okay.
significant improvement. Is it that we probably need to make a decision here and move on. I think, a middle ground could be, because it sounds like what we're talking about is currently there isn't a public nuisance because finally the backyard has been cleared up. And I recall us having a conversation back in, was it May or a May board meeting where we gave an extension and there was an inspection then on June 21st. I mean, it's been a long time, which I think is where the frustrations are on the part of the health department that it's been going on. On the other hand, currently things are not a public nuisance as we sit. But a day's concern is in 30 days or 45 days, it could be a public nuisance. And I certainly do a lot of weeding in my yard, and I know how quickly things can, come back. So, one sort of in between or compromise recommendation could be, since basically to give Mr. Stowell and Michelle Stowell, 30 or 45 days, maybe 30 days. And if in fact, because we are, at some point, this stops being a problem when the cold weather comes. And so, the idea that, an inspection in 30 days, if Mr. Stoll has maintained the property, we may want an inspection 30 days after, but after that, it's pretty much the cold weather sets in and there isn't going to be a whole lot of growth. On the other hand, if in 30 days the property has reverted to its previous situation or is moving in that direction, I don't think the board has to revisit it again. I think there would be an automatic order for a landscaping company to be required. Otherwise, one would be I'm not sure what the legal term is, but in conflict with the order of the Board of Health. So that gives Mr. Stowell an opportunity to show that he can continue this, but with the idea that in the same order that if the property is reverting back to its previous state, that there would be an automatic requirement for a landscaping company, at least through the end of the year, to maintain a safe situation.
That would be acceptable, yeah.
And what happens in March or April once we start, once spring sets in and we start experiencing warm weather?
You're acting like
that would be, the concern would be there could be growth coming back. But if, on the other hand, you mentioned a temporary landscaping company, even if it was through the end of the year, that the March problem would still, or April, would still be problem. And I think we could certainly not make the order for a landscaping company, not make it conditional on a 30-day inspection. But anytime in the next 12 months, if the property reverts, that would be the automatic requirement.
I would appreciate that opportunity.
Other thoughts? Carrie, Paula, Kevin, Jerry, any?
I would agree with you, Rick, to grant the extension contingent on upkeep, maintenance and upkeep. And if at any time it reverts back within maybe the year or that you indicated, then that would be an automatic enforcement of professional landscaping.
Kevin,
Yeah,
what
I
do
would
you
agree
think?
with the same. Yeah, I'd agree with the same thing. I think it's a good middle ground that you found, Rick. It seems like it is progressing in the correct direction. It seems like Brian has made progress over there. So I think we have to give maybe a little leniency there to allow for it to continue to make progress. And, you know, I completely hear what you're saying, Ade. It sounds like there's some frustrations on both sides since this has been going on for a while. So I don't know a whole lot about the backstory here. I've not visited the property. I don't know from sight lines. I do trust what Ade is telling me. But Brian, if you think you can continue to make the progress that is satisfactory to the health department, I don't see what couldn't grant an extension, obviously contingent upon if that progress starts to fail, that a professional landscape company would need to come in.
I'd appreciate that second chance. Yes.
Jerry, what do you think?
I like your middle ground. I think it seems like it meets the needs of both sides at this point. The future will always reveal what it's going to reveal.
Yeah. Carrie?
Yeah, I agree. I am conscious that I'm always kind of thinking about precedent and making sure. So I think that it's if we move it, there's the automatic if there are issues at that point, because what concerns me is that we're setting up essentially a beat, right, where the staff will be inspecting monthly a property as opposed to having confidence that a property's been in place. I'm not disagreeing with this middle ground, but that's the thing that I'm aware we're setting up a little bit, and I think we just want to be considerate of that and just be aware of it for people.
Yeah,
Right?
no, I absolutely agree, and we don't want to place extra burden on the health department to have to repeatedly, go back to the property and look again and again. I suppose having a landscape company automatically doesn't ensure necessarily that the way they would manage it would be the result over the next 12 months. I think extending this order, the potential order for a landscaping company over the next 12 months helps keep it in focus.
Mhm.
And I would hope that it sounds like Mr. Stoll is committed to keeping the property clear. I would hope that the health department doesn't need to continue to do a lot of inspections here, because there are lots of things that need to get done. And so I guess what I would propose is a motion that that in 30 days, that there would be an inspection in 30 days, and that if the property is reverting to its previous state, there would be an automatic requirement, an order of the board for a landscaping company to be retained within 2 weeks to manage the property. And that secondarily, that requirement for a landscaping company, should the property revert to its previous state, would stay active for the next 12 months, so that this is not something that we're going to let slide. On the other hand, so that would be it. It would be inspection in 30 days, mandatory landscaping company to keep the property in 30 days if, and retained in 2 weeks if the property is reverting to its previous state. And secondly, that over the next 12 months, that order for a landscaping company would stay in place should the property revert to its previous state. So that's the motion.
Mhm.
I would agree.
Okay.
Second,
Yep, so we have Paul as a second. Roll call, Carrie,
Yes.
Paula,
yes.
and Rick, yes. Thank you, Mr. Stoll, for coming, and
Thank you all.
we have, appreciate your representing yourself, and we certainly hope that this situation can be put behind us, over the next 12
too.
months and not
Yeah.
revert.
Me too. Thank you very much. Okay, good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Yes.
All right.
All right, next item on the agenda
Ash.
is 365 Ash Street.
Right.
As you all know, this property was condemned on July 20th. The occupant is in good health, thank God, and is currently in a hotel. The owner has decided to comply with the order and intends to move back in as soon as the repairs are completed. The owner is requesting a 90-day extension to correct violations listed in the condemnation order, as well as other violations that may prevent reoccupation of the dwelling unit. My recommendation to the board is for the board to grant them a 90-day extension to get the violations corrected. And I believe Ray Warren is here as well. If you would like to comment, please go ahead.
Mr. Warren. Jackie, are you able to?
No, he's
unmute him?
unmuted.
Yes.
He's unmuted.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't use Zoom, so, but
Sure.
the comment I'd like to make is that we are actively seeking out contractors, and we have gotten limited estimates so far, but we are expecting, and we're promised some this week, and they still have not come in. So it is difficult to get contractors, and we're also evaluating, whether it's worth the effort. So it's definitely in process, and we're trying to do as much as we can to help my dad.
Okay.
So Ade, let me just clarify, the building remains uninhabitable during the 90 days until the improvements are made, correct? I mean, it's
Correct.
not.
Until the repairs are made and we inspect
Yeah.
the dwelling.
And you re-inspect.
If it meets the standards of human habitation, then we allow the occupant to move back in.
Okay. Okay, I personally feel fine with Ade's recommendation. Any other comments or
No,
suggestions?
I agree.
So I'd make a motion that we provide a variance for a 90-day delay, during which time the improvements have to be repaired and a reinspection occur prior to the building being re-inhabited.
Second.
Okay, we appreciate the gesture and the ruling, and we'll keep. We've been in contact with Brett in the building department, and we're gonna keep working with him and trying to get this resolved
Great.
in a timely fashion.
Great.
I think I heard a second from, was it
Carrie.
Carrie? Okay. Roll call, Paula,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Thank you, Mr. Warren,
Thank you.
and thank you, Adele.
Have a good night.
Yes, thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Uh,
The next item on
Kevin,
the agenda.
yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's, go ahead.
Kevin, did you have any updates on the coalition?
I'll give
or-
you a quick, a brief update. I was not able to attend the July meeting, but I was at the June meeting, and I sent everybody out that email. I'm sure you got it, the teen mental health
That was
first
very
aid.
helpful. Yep.
Yeah, that was something that they presented there was some pretty eye-opening statistics on there. And unfortunately, in regards to that, they were part of this program, or they were starting to transition to this program called I Decide. I brought it up to you folks, I forget when, probably this time last year, maybe. They had to since pull back from transitioning into that program. Erica told us at the June coalition meeting that there was a component to it which was a little bit of a bait and switch by this organization, because they don't tell you about the second component until you kind of comply with the first component. Then when you're halfway through this process, they bring up, oh, surprise, here's something that I'm sure you're not going to like that we're going to inform you about. And a lot of it had to do with around how they handled instances that may have come up and arisen, that it was more in a penal manner to the individuals that may have tested positive for different substances. And they just, it was something that Erica really didn't feel comfortable with, where she was hoping this is more of an educational piece, more of a, am I looking for a backing piece where it's really helping the individual. And this seemed to be more on a penal side of it. So they kind of put a hard pause on it, and then decided to move away from the program. So they are going to have to kind of revamp a little bit and pick up that program, which they previously had. They were kind of running it themselves. This was going to be outsourcing it through MGH pilot program. So it's they're going to have to take on a little bit more now themselves to kind of, until they can find maybe another pilot program that's something that's more suitable to what they're looking for. There's also there is an upcoming, they have their annual meeting, which is it's like an annual event. They do it in September. It's going to be Wednesday, September 28th, 6 p.m. on the town common. This is a recovery and remembrance event. It's organized by the Mystic Public Health Coalition for Reading, Medford, Malden, Melrose, Wakefield, Winchester, and Stoneham, to celebrate those living in recovery and remember those who have lost substance misuse. So they do this once a year, where this is kind of a monthly meeting, but they have some kind of event. This year, it's a recovery and remembrance event. I'll remind you at our next meeting as well about it, but it will be Town Common, Wednesday, September 28th, 6 p.m. And so I think there was one other piece. Give me 1 second as I'm scrolling through my notes here. That was one other piece I wanted to mention as well.
I had a question, Kevin.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know anything more about that residential facility that they were refurbishing across from the library? It was supposed to be for kids with.
Yeah, it's open and running.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
It is. Yep, it's up and running. Yep.
Good.
So that was taken care of. Let me see if I don't find it in the next 10 seconds here, I'll let you folks move on. It wasn't a huge thing, but it was. Oh, so they are at the June meeting as well. They're doing their own needs assessment, so to speak, for themselves, for the town. And I did mention that we're actually looking to do the same thing. So I told Erica to get in contact with the day. And so it seems like something that we should be collaborating on, certainly between our two boards, because they really tie into one another quite nicely, really.
For sure.
Yeah.
Kevin,
That's all we have.
So,
Yep.
thank you. I sorry, Rick, if I can, I noticed a Facebook post, yay Facebook, that from the coalition, that they're organizing a Rocket Leaders in Action group, and it's a youth leadership group that they have some high school students who are going to be active in the fall. And I'll be interested to hear about that. I thought that was
Yeah.
great. It caught my attention. I thought it was great.
Oh.
So
Very nice.
I look
Oh,
forward
that's
to.
interesting. That must have been at the July meeting that I
It was
missed. Okay.
probably the
Yeah.
meeting. So I look forward to hearing more about that when you update us. They just do such great stuff at the coalition. It's really.
They really do. They're doing a ton of stuff at the high school. They're actually they're increasing the amount of work that they're going to be doing with the kids at the high school, with the resource officers and themselves, and the clinician, and so it's really, you know, they're really active right now in the community, which is great. More so, I'd probably say on the younger kids, but they're going to be rolling out. I think I told you. I think it's starting this July. They're starting to work more in the adult community as well too. So that's starting to ramp up those efforts also.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Can Dave, this is sort of connected to the coalition, but it just struck me. The hoarding task force, is the clinician from the coalition on that task force?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to the Ash Street situation, was the clinician from the coalition involved
Absolutely.
in that?
We were all
great.
involved. Everybody, police
Okay,
department,
great.
fire, health, everybody. It was great collaboration. So
Terrific. Good. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Ade, I guess it's back to you on the Climate Advisory Committee.
okay. So the Reading Climate Advisory Committee is proposing that the town of Reading adopt a new bylaw that prohibits food establishments within the town from using polystyrene disposable.
Sorry.
From using polystyrene disposable food service containers, cutlery, or single-use disposable products. I emailed the board a draft of the proposed bylaw. I believe it was on Tuesday. And I've been communicating back and forth with the Reading Climate Advisory Committee. Mr. Zeke, the chair of the committee, is here tonight to present some details regarding the proposed bylaw. I believe Jackie has a PowerPoint presentation.
David, did you want to share it or do you want me to share it?
Hold on.
Well, thank you for allowing me to come tonight. Either way, Jackie, if you got it, that's fine.
If it's easier for you to share it, that's great too. Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Zeke.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and you can just go on to then. So yeah, the Climate Advisory Committee, at the request actually of a resident, was looking at a couple different bylaws, and one that we thought that made sense to carry forward was this one that would prohibit polystyrene food service items. And so what I thought I would do is kind of walk you through it a little bit. There are pieces in this these slides that are right out of the bylaw, and we can look at the bylaw if you care to. And there are pieces in here that are more explanatory that I thought might be more helpful than just reading the bylaw itself. The first item on this slide, the regulation. This is wording right out of the bylaw. So this is the regulation. It's really the extent of it, that food establishments will be prohibited from using, distributing, and selling the disposable food service containers and cutlery and disposable items. So we're talking about the clamshell packages that you get when you're taking leftovers home. We're talking about some cups, lids, and utensils, forks and knives and things like that. There are these two different forms. There's a polystyrene comes in these two forms. A rigid form, which is clear. So when you have like a clear fork or a clear cup, that can be a polystyrene cup or fork or whatever. And then the foam form, which includes styrofoam, and is probably the more egregious part of this. Is used for you know, various kinds of just, you know, again, clamshells or bowls or trays and things like that. This bylaw is kind of limited in scope. It doesn't affect service items made out of other materials. I mean, we would clearly like to move away from plastic as a goal, but this does not preclude using other forms of plastic for these same purposes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. It does not prevent or preclude selling polystyrene items in like in bulk. Like if you went to Home Depot and bought picnic, utensils, you could do that. This bylaw doesn't affect that. Some of the towns that passed bylaws also prohibit selling polystyrene items, but this bylaw does not do that. It's really focused on the food service, and it doesn't preclude people from buying polystyrene materials in bulk. It doesn't have anything to say about packaging that comes that way. If food is packaged in polystyrene packaging that outside the town, if that's the way it comes, if that's the way it's bought, if that's the way it's put on the shelf, then this bylaw doesn't apply. This applies to food being put into packages by our food service businesses in Reading. It doesn't affect the foam packaging peanuts. It doesn't affect freezer chests. So that you can see that it's kind of limited. It's not all inclusive. Jackie, you want to? By the way, interrupt me at any time. It's probably easiest to answer questions as we go if you want to. All right. What's the problem with styrene? Well, polystyrene is based on styrene. It's a neurotoxin and a probable carcinogen. It's the only plastic that's used in food packaging that's based on a carcinogen. So it also leaches. The styrene leaches out of the packaging in the presence of high heat or certain kinds of foods. It's harmful to wildlife. The foam, the styrofoam in particular, really crumbles and is mistaken for food by animals. It's not biodegradable. It breaks it. So polystyrene is kind of a hard, brittle plastic. So if you have a plastic knife that you can actually cut something with, is probably polystyrene. But the other end of that is that it's quite brittle. So forks and materials will break, and they'll break up easily, and so it doesn't biodegrade. It just kind of crumbles away over a couple hundred years into littler and littler bits of plastic that remain in the environment. And polystyrene is almost never recycled. It's not worth recycling. The rigid forms, the clear forms are never recycled. The town will accept the styrofoam recycling if you take it over to DPW. But if you go over to DPW, you won't see any food containers that people have thrown in there. It's all this bulk packaging kind of material. Anyway, switch again, Jackie. Next slide. So what's the alternative? Well, there's a lot of different alternatives. There's paper and cardboard materials for food to save food or carry food. There are foil materials. There are plant-based materials. There are compostable containers, and there are other types of plastics. This is showing you that all these many different kinds of plastic. The polystyrene, the number 6, is the one that's being prohibited by this bylaw. Next slide. So massgreen.org keeps track of these bylaws in the state. There are 40, and that their website lists 47 different bylaws in Massachusetts. Most of the material in our bylaw was really came from Arlington. That was a well-written bylaw, and I think it was passed in 2019. So and it looked like a good fit for us, pretty much. Arlington did include the prohibition on selling polystyrene items in the town from any retail establishment. We didn't include that. I'm going to go on the next one, Jackie. Okay, so this now these next few slides are out of the bylaw itself. So there's a definition section. This is the definition of polystyrene. Was what I was talking about before. There are two forms. There's a foam form, that's the and then there's a rigid form, and so it's talking about both of them, and it's generally it's also identified as a number 6 recycling plastic, but it's not really recyclable. Next one, Jackie. Food establishment covers quite a bunch of territory here, so this I think is probably particularly pertinent to maybe what you're interested in. All operations that store, prepare, package, serve, vend, or otherwise provide food for human consumption, such as restaurants, mobile food vendors, caterers, residential kitchens, schools, farmers markets, and public venues, where public venues includes all the things that go on in the town. Churches, town offices, the senior center, the rec department, the library, and everybody who would be serving food and packaging it in some kind of containers. Next one, Jackie. And the disposable food service containers is also pretty broadly defined here. So used for serving or consuming or transporting food, for whether it's leftovers or whatever. So we're talking plates, cups, bowls, trays, lidded containers, straws, cups, and cutlery, and single-use disposable packaging for uncooked foods prepared on the premises, such as disposable catering trays. Next one, Jackie. And this is the regulation again. So it just says that those products, those food service containers are not allowed, nor are cutlery and single-use disposable products made of polystyrene. And the next one. So this is enforcement. There was some email conversation about this that I think concluded that the health department should be the group that would enforce this, and therefore the director in charge is the health director, and the health director has the authority to administer and enforce this. The director also has the authority to issue additional rules or regulations. The rest of it follows exactly what we did on the plastic bag ban, which was that there's an escalating penalty for violation. Starts out with more of a warning and then goes through a couple levels of fines, and also has in this section 4.3 a waiver process that can give up to 6 months if a business thinks that they can't comply with this for some reason. Maybe they've got a whole back room full of polystyrene cups or something, whatever their reason is, and for 6 months, and then subsequently may provide one additional 6-month waiver if it's still in need. We put this in just to because we really weren't trying to make an emergency issue of it. That's what we did. This is exactly what we did in the plastic bag bylaw thing that we wrote, and we had, I believe, 5, maybe 6 waivers. I don't think anybody went for 2 waivers, but that was all we had, and we hadn't heard about it since. That's really all of it. But you jump ahead, Jackie, to where it starts showing pictures of, so these are polystyrene products that would not be allowed. These happen to be all food containers. Next slide. These are also food containers, but would be acceptable. And one more slide. Plastic packaging materials that would be acceptable. That's kind of it. in a nutshell. I've asked for a time in front of the board, the select board, to get their approval of this bylaw. Yeah. You have a question for me, Paula?
Yes. I was just wondering, excuse me, what your rationale was for not addressing this to selling the polystyrene as well.
Well, this is a judgment call. So let me first explain. There's a couple of different levels of this. There's the feature of selling that we did not include. There are also polystyrene bylaws that only look at the styrofoam and don't address the plastic utensils, the clear plastic. Mm-hmm. We decided that we wanted to look at all kinds of polystyrene, but not the selling. Why not the selling? I think it's a different problem for enforcement, and what we're really mostly interested in is we're really trying to address throwaway, single-use plastic or any kind of items. We could go further and say no plastic of any kind, but polystyrene is the kind of plastic where it's actually a problem for the environment and for recycling and so forth. We would hope that the businesses would opt for, wherever possible, things that were not plastic, and therefore we go with more biodegradable materials and so forth. And we've also, since this and the main focus from the person who brought this to us was really just the waste of single-use anything. Aside from the material, just the whole idea of getting a food container, taking it home and throwing it away, or a straw that you actually never end up using, or forks and things that end up in your little bag that you get through a drive-through, but you don't use them because you have metal utensils at home. There's that kind of thing. So I guess we're just I can't really exactly say why we would not go there. We're not really opposed to going further, but it's a new idea for the town, and so we wanted to go this far now.
Kind of a one step at a time thing.
Yeah. It's not unusual, by the way. Other towns have often tagged this polystyrene issue onto their plastic bag bylaws. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where we are in the process. If you think that we should go further, say so. But
that's my personal preference. But mm-hmm. That's fine. I don't think you're ready to go there yet, it seems.
Well, it's a process. So the pain.
Yeah.
It's painful. Whatever is included, right? So if there's support for going further, we're not opposed to going further. It's just we didn't take that step.
Can I ask, and then I'll let Carrie ask. Can I ask? Has there been a public hearing where there would be opportunity for restaurants and other businesses to hear this and give feedback?
There's not. This has not been sold to the community. We just got the bylaw together. Okay. I'm interested in getting to see what kind of support there is within the town, management, and I think that's definitely needed. This has to go to town meeting, obviously, because it's a bylaw, and I would want to go to town meeting with some feedback from the business community that's affected.
Carrie, you had a question?
Yes. And Paula, you asked one of mine, and Rick, you asked one of mine too. So, because one of my questions was process. Where are we in this? So at this point, Mr. Zeke, you're asking us for feedback about this, and
I'm asking for feedback and also concurrence about the administration and enforcement part.
Okay.
Do you believe that belongs with the health
department? Okay, so then I do have a couple, I have a few questions. There's reference in there to a feasibility, that, you know, if the opportunity for extensions, if it wasn't feasible for a business to, implement it. Is there a feasibility standard, or is, it's seems somewhat subjective at this point, and I'm wondering how a director would be able to implement that. You know,
Well, so the standard that we used for the plastic bags was if you ask for it, you can have it.
Okay.
And we had 5 that did.
So, okay. And thank you, that's helpful. So, because part of the, you know, I did a little research on this, and part of the thing that is, a concern is supply chain issues, that resources aren't always available, and people might be in a position, and I know of food service places that have been in a position of not using polystyrene and being forced to go back because their suppliers were not able to fulfill. So I'm wondering how that kind of circumstance, because I don't think supply chain issues are going to go away too soon. I'm wondering how that would be addressed in a enforcement scenario.
So there's a waiver, and then there's a second waiver if needed. So we're talking a year. That gives businesses a year to work through those supply chain issues. I would say beyond that, it's a violation.
Okay. Okay. I think there's more, there's, I don't know, supply, yeah, I guess that's right. But I do think that the supply chain issues, having just gone through a huge amount of purchasing, the supply chain issues are quite shocking and surprising. They pop up all over the place. So and I'm being told by folks that we should not expect this is going to clean up tidily. So that's, I'm thinking this is a more continual issue as opposed to a temporary glitch. So that's why I'm raising it. So that's perhaps something to consider, and see if it's come up in the other communities that have passed this, and if, you know, how they maybe have addressed it. My notes are all over the place. You would, the point about it being not all inclusive, you know, this is my personal opinion, that I would be concerned that, I'd be interested in seeing something kind of go full on, because, you know, I know the margins for our, food service places are not huge. And I wouldn't want to give anybody the impression that an industry was being singled out. That's my observation. I don't know, you know, I know that, you know, from a community organizing perspective, that increases the range of people that you're talking about impacting, and that would increase the outreach that you need to do. But that's just one of the things that occurs to me.
You know, there again, we kind of followed the model that we used earlier on the bag law, which was, you know, retailers can't provide a thin film bag at checkout. But if you want to go to Home Depot and buy a whole box of thin film bags yourself, you can do that. There's nothing in our bylaw that prevents you from buying thin film bags for yourself in bulk. And that's what's going on here is, you know, there's nothing to prevent you from going and buying, you know, a carton of polystyrene forks or clamshells or whatever as a citizen.
Right.
You know, and therefore those businesses are not precluded from selling them to you. But for a business operating within the town that's serving food, we don't want to use that packaging.
Yeah.
So, but you would prefer a bylaw that banned both.
Well, to my mind, if we're talking about addressing the issue of biodegradability, and we're talking about sustainability and the like, I think that's the direction that you would take. I do appreciate the nuance that you're describing about, you know, not preventing an individual from doing so, but if the intent, so I'm looking at it from the intent of environmental impact and mitigating environmental impact, and to me that would read towards all products. it seems like a more consistent argument. Okay, and then, so if people don't recycle, right, if people choose not to recycle, is there any value to this, this new bylaw being implemented? You know, is there a, I'm being, it's the, well, if you're not recycling, then it doesn't matter because it's all going in the trash anyways. But are we talking about using more biodegradable and compostable products so that there would be some mitigation in the regular trash stream?
Well, I would certainly hope so, right? I mean, the part of the problem with polystyrene is just the way is the carcinogenic effect from using it, which is not a problem unless you stick that fork in your mouth, right? There's and the problem of the materials crumbling away and becoming part of the fish food, you know, I mean, becoming part of the environment. So it's a worse plastic, and a reason to get rid of it is just that. As far as recycling, yeah, I don't, this stuff, I mean, you don't, these particular materials cannot be recycled. But if you're saying, well, nobody's recycling anyway, it's just going in the burn pile, then, well, you know, that's sad, but that's true. You know, and that's just where we are.
Right. No, and I get, maybe I didn't make myself clear. What I'm asking is, so we go forth and this bylaw is passed, and still there are people who choose not to recycle, but because the more harmful products have been eliminated, there's still a positive impact.
Yes, there's still virtue there. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to, thank you. That I guess I didn't express it clearly. That's what I was wondering. Okay. This is helpful. Thank you. I'm interested in this. I would encourage you to do outreach to the businesses. I think it's always a you know, folks, you get them engaged, community organizing stuff, right? You get them engaged as opposed to deliver and get them inside the tent, or at least get them informed. I think that is important. But I certainly understand the positive impacts on the environment to this action. I am also aware that there would be negative impacts to businesses, and I'd want them to their costs. I'd want them and want to make sure folks were informed. So it's a very thorough presentation. I really appreciate the time. I understand all of the rationales, and I think I made my points of kind of what directions I would be interested in clear.
No, thank you, Carrie, and I appreciate your recommendation. I guess that we go further with it, and also.
I think one thing that might be helpful is if there's any data out there about in the universe of using these products, what percent are used in food establishments in the way they do it, and what percent are really, you know, purchased, you know, at a store. You buy, you know, a box of plastic forks for a picnic, you know. My guess is that it could very well be 80% are used by food establishments, and really only a small number are actually used by people who, you know, as you say, go to Home Depot and buy, you know, 100 units of it. So that understanding some of the data could help justify how to approach it. You know, if you're getting 80%. The only other thing as a follow-up, and then I'll give it to a day, is actually two things. One is you might consider after the second waiver, you know, another 6 months, that rather than it becoming an automatic violation, that it has to be brought to the Board of Health for, you know, consideration of any further waivers. So there's some flexibility and some discussion and about why it's happening, and as opposed to just a hard and fast automatic violation after the second waiver. So there might be something to consider And then lastly, who enforces the plastic bag issue with retail? Because the health department doesn't do that. I don't know
DPW.
who does that.
DPW does.
DPW does. Okay. So that would be another reason why it would be difficult to do the retail part, because you'd actually have two different departments in the town managing it. But I guess that's not impossible to manage. Dave,
Yeah,
did you
but
have
I'm not
a
sure we
question?
want to do that. I mean, that's you might
Yeah.
get stuck. You know.
Right.
However, this does. I mean, one of the details that I am struggling with a little bit is in the grocery stores, because this should apply to like the salad bar, you know, in the grocery store. But grocery stores also sell picnic supplies.
Right.
You know, and I'd like to, and you know, if we went all the way and said you can't sell polystyrene, well, that's not, then there's no problem, right? But it's otherwise, it's a little bit of, well, you can sell it on aisle 2, but you can't serve it.
Right.
Right.
Aisle 10, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Right.
That's an inconsistency. You'd see that in a variety of places. It's interesting. Yeah.
Dave,
Out of curiosity, in the towns and cities that have already adopted this bylaw, do you know if the restaurants or food establishments are charging a polystyrene surcharge on their bill?
I'm not aware of anything like that, but I have not researched that. So, I mean, it's a cost, right? It's not a cost driver for restaurants so much, but in other words, what drives a restaurant like is the labor cost and so forth. It's not the cost of plastic utensils. So it could. There actually, it depends on what you're buying. It will be a little bit more, a little bit less cost, but this is not a big cost factor for the restaurant.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
I've been good, thanks. Just to follow up kind of on what Ade was saying, what are the towns doing for enforcement? Is it the health department or DPW?
You know, it varies, but it's usually health department.
Usually health department. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ade, how would you imagine something like this would work? Just on regular twice a year inspections?
Well, we go into the establishments at least twice a year, so
Right.
I mean, it's an additional burden, but I don't see it as a huge burden. We're there regardless, so we can just take a look at the polystyrene products and tell them to discard it if needed.
Okay, so it's not going to be a huge lift on your department.
Correct, since we're already at the establishment doing our inspections. So
okay, I think that's.
I think DPW, if I remember right, it's been a while now. I think early on we asked for just a kind of a certification from the business, you know, that said, here's the bylaw, here's what's required of you. Are you complying?
And then it became complaint based, right?
Yeah. So it's you know, so I mean, they send a letter that says, yep, we understand what the requirements are and we're complying. And that way, when you do an inspection or whatever, if you find that's not the case, then they're operating then in contradiction of what they told you.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, the only major burden that I see is from the technology aspect. We would have to alter our food inspection reports to include the bylaw, and I'm not sure if the software company will be able to do that. But you know, if it gets passed, then we'll look into it.
Okay. So is this something you're looking to do at subsequent town meeting coming up?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's if it gets complicated, we need to push it off. We can, but yes, that was our target. Was November.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that was the only question I had. It seemed like, David, that's what you were looking for, where the landing spot for for being at the health department, correct?
Well, that in general, I mean,
For-
just
for-
reaction, you know, and advice. Yes.
And
Yeah,
maybe buy-in,
My initial. What was
Buy-in,
that?
yeah, buy-in.
right?
Yeah, my initial thought as you were giving the presentation, I'm looking through it, I'm just thinking, I don't know that it's going to be a huge burden in town as is. From the pictures you showed me, I can't remember the last time I got anything that resembled the polystyrene ones that are coming from these food establishments. So I think, I definitely agree, and this is more town meeting hat on, engage the business community and get that input and feedback. I think that's always is big, but I think you're going to find most people go, oh no, we already do anyway. For the majority, I don't know, I'm not in every food establishment all the time, but I don't think it's going to be that huge of a burden that's not already being taken on, which is good.
I would agree, and I'm very positive, I think, towards it. It's, it's too bad this is another example. It's too bad the Commonwealth doesn't sort of have this, as opposed to incrementally 351 towns having to do this one by one.
Well, a little bit of the wording in our bylaw was stolen from a bill that was introduced in 2017. It did this for the state, but it did not pass.
They did not pass. Huh?
Yeah. So there's been one run at it from the state level, but that's, yes, I agree.
Okay,
well,
so
I appreciate your time then.
I appreciate your
for that.
time.
It was great.
Good night.
Thank you for promoting this,
Hi, David.
David.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
So a day, monthly report.
Yes, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. In the month of July, we conducted 25 food inspections, 3 food re-inspections, 1 food complaint inspection, 3 housing complaint inspections, 1 swimming pool inspection, 1 swimming pool re-inspection, 1 septic abandonment, 1 percolation test and test hole, 1 brand new septic system application, 11 animal inspections, 3 rat complaints. We issued 3 temporary food event permits. All keeping of animals permit, 11 of them were renewed in the month of July. All body art establishments and body art practitioner permits were renewed in July, except for Roundtable Tattoo. We've been, sending them messages, but we haven't been able to communicate with them. So we will be taking further steps in the coming weeks to achieve compliance. The application for the apprenticeship program is live on our website. Anyone who wishes to participate in the program can visit our website and apply online. We've already had 2 applications, so that's great. Let's see. I am happy to announce that we offered the public health nursing position to Mallory McDonald, and she accepted it.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great.
I'm so happy about that. Her start date is August 22nd, and I will be introducing her to the board at the next Board of Health meeting. In terms of the admin secretary position, we will be conducting additional interviews next week, and I will provide an update at the next Board of Health meeting. Typically, I would go ahead and defer the, public health nursing to the public health nurse to give us the updates. But she just messaged me about half hour ago that she won't be attending the meeting. So I'll just give you what I have over here. It might not be as detailed as what you're expecting, but I wasn't, I didn't know she would not attend the meeting. So let's see. So the total case count for COVID is 5,456. We currently have 50 active cases. Deaths remain at 53. Recovered cases 5,336. We have a salmonella investigation going on, and we have 2 campylobacteriosis investigation going on. Our next COVID vaccine clinic is on August 11th at the Killam School. It will be from 12 to 3, but pediatrics, from 12 to 1 will be for pediatric ages, and 1 to 3 will be open to the public. And that is pretty much it for public health nursing. Let's see, what else do we have? All right, that's pretty much it for the monthly update.
The
Any
housing,
questions?
yeah, the housing complaints were the ones that we've already discussed, correct, Ade?
Well, there are 2 additional ones. We have 44 Ash Street, and there was exposed insulation around the kitchen area, and we also have 54 Ash Street. The steps, the stairwell was in disrepair, exposed wiring. There was a leak in the ceiling, but the owner complied with the violation and the order like quickly. It took him like 3 days to get it taken care of. So
Great.
yes, those have been corrected.
Good.
And of course 365 Ash, and they were before you tonight. So yeah.
I had forgotten we had septic a day. How many do we have? And was that you that did those?
Yes,
Good
it
job.
was me that did it. There are some areas of town that are not connected to the town sewer, so they still have to be on septic. So
Yep.
I was not aware of that either. I thought we were all on sewer.
no.
Not everybody, yeah. Hmm.
And in terms of monkeypox, which brought up at the beginning of the meeting, so there's some informational material on the website.
On our website, health department.
Our website, the health department, and but there's not, it's not clear what the next steps are. There isn't enough vaccine, and it's a very targeted population of high-risk people at the current time. I'm not sure what, if anything, we need to be doing. There hasn't really been a whole lot of direction from the state. Does anybody else have heard
I was
anything?
just thinking in terms of public education and awareness, nothing more than that.
Yeah.
Well, I know
Okay.
that 2 hours ago, the U.S. Declared monkeypox a public health emergency.
Right, right.
So-
That's what prompted my,
So that'll free up some funding to be able to direct. I mean, that action then allows some other things to happen so that maybe we can get some vaccine manufactured or procured. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hot topic among my colleagues at the hospitals and at public health departments. Because, we wanted to provide some education, and because there's not really a vaccine strategy at this point. I mean, there's, exposure and access. I think there's a lot of disinformation out there that there's some suggestion that it is somehow a sexually transmitted disease, and that's not accurate. And I think it's important because people feel like they're safe if they're not engaging if they're not part of that population, but that's not the case. So that's the thing I've heard about.
CDC usually put, well, I don't know if they've done this yet. I haven't researched it, but they will often put up a public health flyer. What is monkeypox? That kind of thing. I'm happy to go and research that, but I didn't know if anybody had already done that.
I haven't
I haven't.
Haven't
We've
seen
only
it.
talked about it. I haven't looked at any literature. So
Yes,
I
we
will
got,
go and look and
we
see
got a
if I
flyer
can.
from the state today. So
You did? Oh, okay.
yes, so
And
I
is that
plan
what's
on
on the
putting,
website?
I plan on putting it on the website.
Okay,
tomorrow.
perfect.
great,
That's all I was looking for. Thank you.
good.
All right. Unless there are any
Jackie's home
other
safe and
questions.
sound.
Yes.
This public comment, there's no one here from the public that I can see on my screen. And so
TMO.
Yeah, who is
TMO is
TMO?
Jackie.
Jackie.
Jackie, she has a two, yeah. And in terms of our next meeting in September, you know, if there are any suggestions for agenda items, please forward them to Aday. I have asked Aday to give us a brief update on where we are with respect to the recommendations that we got 6 months ago from MAPC. They had a list of recommendations, and I think it's important for us once or twice a year to revisit them and just make sure, you know, are the things that we need to be doing or what's been done, just so we know. But if there are any other ideas for agenda items, please pass them along. And then Aday forwarded the open meeting law emergency extension for remote and hybrid meetings has been extended to March 31st, I think. And, you know, at some point, we ought to talk about whether we want to, you know, move to hybrid meetings. You know, the one thing in the back of my mind is so far, COVID has been sort of percolating at a very steady pace, but not taking off. I think the numbers yesterday that the state published for Reading were again like 20 cases per 100,000 over the last 7 days. So it's what it's been for the last 4 weeks. I know our case count may fluctuate, but the overall is about the same. So the only thing in the back of my mind about you know, going hybrid or in person is as we get into the cold weather, you know, is there a risk that there's going to be an increase? And so we can address that, I think, later on in the year.
Yep.
Hopefully from the perspective of a new vaccine.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rick,
Yes.
really quickly, just in regards to what I brought up earlier about the coalition doing their own needs assessment. I know the next step that we were looking into is going to do the community needs assessment. Remind me, and forgive me if you've brought this up before, when exactly do we have that plan for in the works? Is it just kind of we're letting our own assessment work itself out before we dig into it, or how are we handling this?
I think from my perspective, I'd like to hear from Aday as well. From my perspective, I thought that what we ideally should be doing is, one, getting through COVID. COVID's going to be here for a long time, but kind of get to a place where it's not an urgency, which so far it seems like it's there. And then the other big piece was getting the health department sort of reformulated. You know, Aday had just come. We just hired a public health nurse who hasn't started. We need an admin person. We do have an inspector and Jennifer. So trying to pull together the health department to do the basic day-to-day nuts and bolts. And that's coming into fruition. So in my mind, I was thinking that when those things came together, which is probably we're getting there towards maybe the end of the year, the fourth quarter, maybe we could start to talk about what we would want to do. I mean, we'd have to identify a consultant, and so
We have to do a
I'm
procurement. Yay!
I'm thinking that
And get one applicant again? Yeah.
if the health department's in one is sort of, and actually you're gonna move also, right, in September or
Right.
October?
It's true.
Correct.
So if we get the staffing, we get them in place, COVID is sort of simmering along, that would be the time to really start thinking about that. So I think it's soon. I'm thinking the last quarter of this year, the first quarter of next year, we ought to start planning how to do that.
Okay, great. I just
Yes.
feel like it's going to be a big component to what the board's going to be able to do moving forward for the community. So just want to make sure it stays on our
Absolutely.
radar.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Do we have dollars in our budget already allocated to support thank you. A day, I think you
day?
must have the answer.
Oh, money. It's-
Okay, so
Do we have-
I already have a RFP put together for this,
Oh, excellent.
but we need the funds.
Yep.
So I'm trying to go to town meeting in November to see if we can get the funds to do it. So my timeline is 6 months to 12 months.
Okay.
So hopefully, if we get the funding, then we can get this going by spring,
Yep.
beginning of the fiscal year 2023.
Okay. So that'll be a warrant article for fall town meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Good. I think I know 2 town meeting members here that might be able to speak on behalf of this.
Easy.
Is that a conflict of interest?
I think we can put on our hats and say, speaking
We'll
as,
figure it out.
yeah, we'll definitely figure it out. Good, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
It's great to know.
Good. Anything else? Nope. Okay.
Thank you,
motion
thank
to-
you, Rick and Ade, for a busy meeting.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. I think
Very
Rick's new name is Solomon.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Carrie, second. Roll call. Paula.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Yes. Rick. Yes.
Have a good night, everybody.
Night,
Have a
everybody.
great August.
Everybody stay
See you in
cool.
September.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone. Take care.